Okay, you ready? You right now?
Yeah, I'm right.
Got it out of your system?
Here we go.
All right. Welcome to the podcast. Today, my guest is Russell Smith.
How are you, Scotty?
I'm good.
That's good. It's good to be here, back in the studio. It's been a while since
It has been a while.
Too long.
Let's start out from the beginning. You were born in South Australia.
I was indeed. Born in Port Augusta.
Port Augusta?
Yeah, 1964. 5th of the 3rd, 1964.
Oh, you're not supposed to give away all the info.
Oh, don't worry. I'm old. Who cares? You know, I date back 60,000 years.
So you're born in Port Augusta and you grew up on a mission.
I certainly did.
What was that like?
In those days, as a young bloke, I thought that was, I needed a good space, a good home. But, for me, it was more about not having my family around. But I had my family, my siblings at the mission. But it was really hard not to have mum and dad to be there as part of the family. But, we grew up with missionaries and Christianity.
So brothers and sisters?
Got one brother who lives in Oodnadatta. Just for those who don't know where Oodnadatta is, it's actually near Lake Eyre in South Australia.
Out in the country?
Out in the country, just a small bit of the country. I got one sister. Well, actually, I had three sisters. One passed away, but got two left. So that's it. Mum and Dad.
Where are they living?
Oh, in Adelaide.
Did music? When did that come into your life?
Well, music came when I was a kid, growing up as in the mission, because we all grew up on hymns and and learned guitar at the mission, and the missionary taught us how to play guitar. So we were doing three, D, C, and E.
Okay.
Learning the mission songs.
Very good.
Yeah.
What happened that you ended up growing up on the mission without your mum and dad? Is that part of the stolen generation thing?
It's not a stolen generation. It's more about the policy of the day on the government. We were told that most Aboriginal people in this country were told to go and live on missions and into different places. So, and some Aboriginal people were stolen, but we weren't stolen. We're a more forgotten generation. But we knew our parents and we knew language, and so that was still.
So where were your parents? If you were on the mission, and your parents not on the mission as well?
No, my mum, when she actually went to the mission, she had polio when she was young, but she was in a place called Uldia right on the Western Australian border, and just before, and when she had polio, they sent her straight down to Adelaide, and she went to the hospital there, and when she got better, they sent her straight to Port Augusta to the mission. See, the mission started in 1930 by two old spinsters. And, so that's where it started, and it just grew from there. I think we had about, we had about 350 plus Aboriginal kids through that mission.
Wow. Was it a nice place to be?
It was a nice place. But, when you get a bit older and you start looking at the history of different missions, I think we did okay. But in those days, missionaries thought they were doing the right thing by the policy of the day, but they weren't not connecting their family together. So different families, different family groups together. So yeah, it's different. It's hard. It's hard growing up as an Aboriginal kid in different missions. I mean, that happens right across Australia. I mean, that's not just one place.
So I guess people would have different experiences.
Oh, totally.
Depending on where they were.
Totally. I mean, you have to call a spade a spade. I mean, some missionaries were just really brutal towards Aboriginal people.
Wow.
Yeah.
But you didn't experience that?
I did not experience that. I mean, for me now, it's like I might have grown up very poor as a kid, but my two kids and my wife, those kids, they live very comfortably in Mount Tamborine. Or Tamborine Mountain, I should say.
Yes. Mm. So you learned to play a bit of music on the mission.
Yes.
And At what age were you when you left the mission?
I left about 15.
Where did you go?
I went to Western Australia because in those days the policy is once you turn a certain age, you just left the mission. And they sent me on a bus to Western Australia, to Esperance of all places.
Esperance?
Beautiful. Esperance is actually quite beautiful, but it was a working place for Aboriginal, kids to go and work in workshops and stuff. So I went straight into my, panel beating, which I hated, which I really hated because I don't want to get my hands dirty these days. We're musicians. You know what it's like.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're musicians, can't help it.
I don't, yeah.
So
how long did you do panel beating?
Oh, about 2 years, and I really hated it. And
so you're not going to come around and help me panel beat my van?
Oh, no way. I mean, the history of this country, you've got to not make people feel guilty. It's more about educating people, and I want to educate people as much as possible. And music's the place to do it in.
Yeah. Did you play music in Esperance?
Started to pick up a bit more guitar, and I couldn't write a song that couldn't save me, but I was still playing. I used to bring the guitar out on the trampoline.
And singing?
Yeah, well, I sang a little bit, and I was terrible at singing. Terrible. But, I think as you get older, you get more wiser in terms of, People say to me, Russell, you've got this real Aboriginal voice. Well, I'm Aboriginal, and I've got this unique voice.
You do play didgeridoo?
Yes.
When did that start?
That came naturally to me. I was literally picked up the didge and blew it and went, oh my gosh, I can blow this.
The circular breathing thing, that wasn't something that you were taught?
No, it was, that was down the track because when you play in the backyard, you're not circular breathing to anybody, but when you start being a professional musician, that's when it's like, fuck, I need to really get the handle on this. And I'm pretty good at it, I reckon I'm one of the best didge players going around. That's just me saying that.
You do pretty damn good.
And I get to play with Paul Kelly on one song, and I hang around all day, get tour with him. I love it. It's great.
Yeah. So, where to from Esperance?
Well, where to from Esperance? I went back to Port Augusta.
Oh, okay.
And then I started to work in the schools with young Aboriginal kids.
Just a quick interruption to say thank you for watching the podcast. Please hit the subscribe button. It's very early days for us and we're trying to grow things and you can help. Please share, hit the subscribe button. It makes a massive difference. Thank you very much.
I started working at the Port Augusta High School with those Aboriginal kids, with especially music. Music's been my strong point for a long time. It's been So you start slowly, as the song says, from little things, big things grow. And I started to work that song, to work with those kids.
You eventually move away from South Australia.
Yep. So I went to Melbourne.
Okay.
Decided to go to Melbourne. I knew nobody in Melbourne. Knew nothing.
So why Melbourne?
I don't know. I knew nobody. Started to make friends. Sometimes your friendship breaks up with different people. Different circles of friends, and then started working within the music industry slowly, and it went from there. And became good friends with Jill Shelton, who's used to be Archie's manager, who's retired. Well, Archie's no longer with us, and she worked with the Aboriginal group Tiddis, the 3 Aboriginal women. I got to work that, which is great. Got to help them on tour, set up the stages. So got my hands dirty and started writing songs.
So you work behind the scenes as well as on stage?
Oh, I totally agree. It's great. Especially, it's like when you're young, get to tour around Australia and, work around what they've got. I mean, it was really nice to work with Archie and Ruby because I got to know their setup and what they needed.
Because you were tour managing with Archie just before he passed away.
Yeah, that was the last tour we ever did. And we knew that we had to do it because he's such an icon in the Aboriginal community and we worked really hard.
What did you learn from working with Archie?
Oh, humility. And he wrote some beautiful songs. I got to record one of his songs. Actually, you mentioned that. It's, what about Archie's song? I went, oh, okay. So the very last, on tour, and this is sounding a bit emotional about it, but who Archie was. And when he sang one song, because Archie wrote that song, one song, literally at his kitchen table. And they recorded it at his kitchen table because it was such an important song.
We recorded a version here, and it's a great version. But can you just tell us why that's such a significant song?
Because he sang about his life. It's like everybody's got that one song, and what is that one song people have? So when you hear that every day, what he sings about, especially on tour, and you go, because like you'll sit backstage and go, oh wow, that one song. Everybody's got a story to tell, but what is that one song? You go out with one song. What is that one song you go out with? You know, for me, that was a personal thing because I get to be on tour with Archie. I get to roll him on stage in his little chariot and put him on stage. Then we used to roll out all these oxygen leads and have the oxygen bottle on the side of the stage. He was such a great role model for a lot of Aboriginal musicians, and he really forged a lot of musicians to come out of the Aboriginal scene, which is good, and one was me. But I got to know him personally because who he was, and that last tour was the hardest tour I ever done. Because
how many tours had you done with Archie?
Quite a few tours. We've been to France, we've been to Scotland, we've been to Glasgow, we've been to Ireland with him. So we got to see him right through, but he was sitting business class and we were down the back. That was great. Archie, okay, yeah. We had a bomb scare in Nice with him. It was quite interesting to go, and especially with a whole bunch of musicians and an Archie and manager and oxygen bottles, all the guitars.
Wow!
We're from not far from the counting desk, or actually the ticketing desk, and next minute we're told to shove out of Nice airport. What do you mean? Because it was the anniversary of the Bastille Day, and someone put 5 different bags at Nice airport. So we're all like, I never experienced a bomb scare in a foreign country, but those guys, like those army guys, they walk around with some serious guns, like move. I'm like, I'm yelling, let me get Archie's bag, let's roll him out. But you don't get to experience that, and I really experienced the high points and the low points on touring with Archie. So I mean, we're supposed to be in that day. We're supposed to be in Edinburgh. We didn't get to Edinburgh till like 9 o'clock at night.
Oh wow!
Because we missed our connection flights. We connected different flights. But that's all part of the experience, though. You go from one extreme to the other.
So you're in Melbourne, and you've managed to put a band together called Brolga. When did that happen?
That happened in 96. And
so you'd done quite a few other things in Melbourne before Brolga happened?
Yeah, no, we decided to put, there was young Benny James, who was an amazing bass player, Aboriginal man, and then Dave Moody, and the three of us started. We were a 3-piece band: Dave Moody, Archie, and Benny, and Ben and I. And we were told numerous occasions that Brolga boys were shit. I'm like, okay. And I said to the boys, it's going to take a good 3 to 5 years before we can write some serious good songs. But we stuck at it. We played. We did benefit gigs just to get our name out there. These days it's a different story. I'm lugging around Lee Morgan and Phil Sobrano on stage. and Dave Moody's still with us too. So
that's right. You've got Bones on
He's
on bass.
They were still playing with Courtney Barnett and Matty Vale, who plays in his own band.
You've got quite a relationship with Matty Vale.
Yeah, Matty and I, we go back good 30 years.
Matty Vale's keyboard player.
And we write some really good songs together, and with the rest of the guys, and so yeah. Matty's beautiful musician, and his wife Georgia Fields is another great musician. But he plays in so many different bands, and I got to know him through the Mazza sisters, two sisters, and they were beautiful Aboriginal singers, and yeah.
When did that happen? And obviously Maddie's part of the Brolga crew.
Yeah, no, that was sort of in the 90s, 90, I don't know.
And of course you mentioned having Lee Morgan.
Oh my God, Lee Morgan.
Who's a monster player.
He's a great player, we love him.
And Phil Sobrano, Kate Sobrano's brother.
Kate Sobrano, I love Phil.
And it's quite a big band.
Yeah, it's 7 of us on the road, and plus we carry a crew with us now. I don't pick up a guitar until I get on stage. I have Christian to do that now.
Because touring's very different now to what it used to be.
Totally different.
When it used to be on tour, you'd basically be going from town to town. You're in the back of a van. You got a truck, and
that's right,
going from town to town. Now you're flying everywhere, Russell.
It's like analog versus digital.
You've moved up in the world.
Oh yes, moved up in the world.
When you first started out, I'd imagine though
we were touring in Trigos. Remember the Trigo vans?
Yeah,
full of gear. Packed. The 3 of us in the band, touring away. But different story now.
It's a very different story. I mean, I guess touring now is, unfortunately, not a lot of bands make it out into the Australian countryside anymore.
No, they don't.
It's more capital city stuff.
You need to tour the country areas. Do a small gig in a pub where you can get about 50 people in. People want to hear your music, regardless, and they can buy records. 50 to 80 people buying your records, you can make at least $1,500 to $2,000 on merch. Merch is the killer. Well,
I guess it's that thing these days too, where most of the music is online. Is Brolga's?
Yep.
So all Brolga stuff's on Spotify and Apple Music and all those places.
We've just signed to Believe, the company that does all the online stuff. Like you said, Spotify, Apple Music, iTunes. So we've signed to a company that's worldwide, which is great.
Yep.
We just finished a single with you, and that's about to be. It's mastered already.
So it's the new single from potentially a new album.
Well, I talked to Nate yesterday, and he goes, "Well, you either do an album or that's what we are talking about."
Because we've done the previous album, which we need to talk about. That had songs like "Heart of the Matter."
Yes.
And
A Long Way From Home about David Coppola, how important he was in my life as a kid growing up watching him.
And what's that album called?
It's just called Brolgas at the moment. It's because it's a self-titled album.
Self-titled album.
And it's got this massive, beautiful road with our logo, with our...
I'll put links down below.
Absolutely.
And up on screen somewhere.
It'll be there.
Somewhere.
Not that I'm advertising, Scotty.
There'll be you can see the picture of the album.
When I first rang you about that, because I said, we were in the middle of COVID.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I was frustrated, and I want to got all these songs, and I took a chance and say, Scotty, can we just do one song, and then we'll try and track down the grant, which we did track down the grant, and it did okay, and which there's more to come.
It was quite a difficult thing too, because most of the guys were
Melbourne-based.
In Melbourne.
Yep.
But we also had Andy out in Alice Springs.
Andy Sorensen, Alice Springs. That was great. And he's such a good.
So everybody recorded their parts remotely.
Yes.
I think there was a point where Bones and Dave Moody might have been in LA.
They were in LA recording, dropping stuff off there.
And they managed to do some recording for you from there and send it. Everything being transferred via the internet.
It's all changed. We talked about, touring. Now they jump on planes. That's all changed. This is what recording is all about. It's all changed because you can do it anywhere in your room with the gear that you got and send it down the line and just go click, 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 cut.
I guess the only difficult thing about doing it that way, there is a certain time lag.
Yeah.
It's not the immediacy of having everybody
No.
in the same room
No,
and be able to, okay, let's make that. And there is something special about being all in the same room at the same time.
Totally agree.
The great thing about some of those songs is you had actually done demos of them with all the guys in the band.
Yep.
And we had sort of those sort of things to reference, which
Yep.
was a very cool thing.
Oh, totally agree.
And Lee Morgan came up and actually played live in the studio.
He did. I wanted him to come up and like get your hands dirty, go and look at that Gibson over in the corner over there, and get your hands dirty on it. And Lee's, I mean, I love Lee. I know Lee for a long, long time. And when we first started the industry, he was off and on with us, and because Lee's we call him the Koori Cowboy. If people don't know what Koori means, this means Aboriginal in Victoria. But he was the Aboriginal cowboy. That he was a gunslinger playing guitar. Like everybody uses Lee Morgan. Well,
He's a good guitar player.
he's great.
Yeah.
But him and Phil Sobrano together, oh my God.
We've got a new single coming out,
Yeah, Stick It in the Dirt.
Digging in the Dirt. What's that about?
Sort of about an individual person, doesn't matter who it is, that when you go out in the world, you can be who you are, but at the same time, you've got to find yourself within yourself. And one point there was, digging in the dirt with a crown of thorns. It was like, okay, so I've kind of referenced that as an Aboriginal kid growing up in a mission. That was my... People, when I play it to people, think it's a really angry song, but it's really upbeat. I never thought about it being an angry song. It was more about a personal thing, But it has this... But it just took off. I mean, you would know, Scotty. You made it look like... It was beautiful what you did.
No, I do remember you came to me and you said, I wanted to sound like Boston.
Oh, sorry. Yes. I played 12-string on that. No, because for me, I love Boston. And I grew up with Boston.
We've given it a bit of a Boston groove, a bit of Boston feel with a modern twist.
With a modern twist with an Aborigine look. No, it's I think all songs are personal. It doesn't really matter. It's not. You can write some beautiful songs and you listen to other people's songs like, wow, And and I wrote this song called Digging in the Dirt.
There's no one listening while the rain is falling. Getting to know yourself is your birthright. Getting to know yourself is the hardest part. We experience another way of life, and I'm pretty sure we will survive.
You're in Melbourne.
Sorry.
And you've...
Hang on.
You're in Melbourne.
Yes.
And you've done a whole bunch of things through the 80s, and in the 90s, Brolga happens.
Yeah.
You end up moving away from Melbourne. Why did you move out of Melbourne?
I met my wife Anthea in Melbourne, and she worked at the Australian Volunteers International, and I got asked to be the sound recorders for this doco they made for about 6 Aboriginal kids, not kids, they were students, and they lived in India.
Oh.
For about 4 or 5 months. And we made this doco. So I went with a friend of mine, Stefan, who's a filmmaker in Melbourne. And we went from into Chennai, and then we went down to Vellore, and then went into Taninkodi, which was the village that we stayed in.
In India?
In India. It was actually quite nice to be in it was different because we actually lived in the village, and it was quite good. And we had to carry water and food, and it was a very hot day. Yeah. And I was the sound recorder on that movie.
Yep.
was good.
So you did that. So you met Anthea, and then so was that the impetus to move from Melbourne?
You know, I got to know Anthea. We lived in Melbourne together. Then I got her pregnant. And it was more. Then we got married in Tamborine Mountain, and at grandmother's house. We went back down to Melbourne, came back up here. Had all our kids were born in Gold Coast, and then we went back to Melbourne with the winter, and then she got a job up in Gold Coast, and we moved. So you know, we lived our life. I lived 25 years in Melbourne, so it was like.
So it's basically family because you've got family up on Tamborine.
Got Uncle Robert. You got you. I've joined the band here.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, Russell's an honorary member of the Accidents.
Of the Accidents with Robert and bloody Kerry. You know.
So got the two
little ones. Their winters is now 11. Ready for high school next year. It's kind of funny, like you see these kids that you had on your chest as a father, but now seeing them growing up, and you know, one's going to high school next year, one will be in primary school still. For most Aboriginal kids, I look at their welfare as really important because as a kid I was growing up, I never got all that. I had to share a room with 5 other Aboriginal boys in the same room. We lived. You know, if you've got an opportunity to see a rabbit poo fence, there was a scene in the movie where all the kids were actually in the dormitory where they had all these beds, these cyclone beds, and they were the beds that I actually grew up on from the mission.
Okay.
So it was like, wow, I know those beds, and yeah, it was really hard. So my kids today, these two. They're content, they're happy, they're grumpy at me, but it's more about they're safe, they're fed, they're
getting a good education.
Their education for me is really important.
How would you consider your education? Did you?
I had a tough education growing up. I didn't get stuff. I didn't get good education. But you know, for me,
you're quite a smart person.
Yeah, I am.
Do you think that's street smarts? Is that the stuff that you've learnt along the way?
I think it's a bit of both. I think that street smarts, you got to have your wits about you. But see, I didn't go down that track of as an Aboriginal young fella coming through. I would have been doing this. I would have been doing that.
So you don't smoke.
I don't smoke,
and you don't drink.
I don't drink that much. I'll have a glass of red and a great meal, but at the end of the day, it's about your health. Aboriginal health is really important. Yes, we Aboriginal men, we suffer from that whole. You know, most Aboriginal men don't make 50. Some of them passed away because of diabetes.
Because you've got. You've got diabetes.
I've got diabetes.
I've got diabetes.
I have diabetes, but I'm 60 for an Aboriginal male.
Yeah.
You know,
and you're quite healthy. You manage to. You really look after your health.
I have to look after my health because I've got a wife, I've got 2 kids to worry about, and a band. Blinking heck.
But you've always been quite health conscious.
I've always been that.
So where does that come from? Was there somebody that influenced you in that way to instill that into you?
No one's instilled it, because what I see and what I feel, and as an Aboriginal male, I made sure that I was not going to do that, you know, because my health is really important, and I don't want to be a statistic to what of the, the Aboriginal health in this country. Like, yeah, it's fine, but I got things to do. I got a record, music. I got things I want to play overseas a bit more.
Speaking of playing overseas, so you went overseas with Archie, but you've also been overseas performing.
Yes,
because I know that there's some footage of you playing with Tommy Emmanuel in Germany.
No, it was in France.
In France,
it was in Lorient.
In Lorient.
I said to Jill like 6 months before, and I said, Jill, I'm going to play with Tommy on Dig. She goes, oh, okay. Well, Tommy was in the same hotel with all of us on tour.
Yep.
So he flew in, and I saw him down there. I said, oh, that's Tommy. Hey, g'day, brother. He's like, what? What are you fellas doing here? I said, Tommy, I got my digits here. Oh, really? Yeah. All right. Come down for sound check at 2 o'clock. So we went down there, did a sound check at the festival. Let me explain what Lorient is. The Lorient Festival. It's funny, interesting. It's an Irish festival where
it's an Irish festival
in France. But the Celtics had a connection to Lorient, and the whole week of that festival, they have different. The theme is from different countries, and that year we went because it was Australia. A whole bunch of Australians were there. Archie was one of the main headliners on that tour, so we spent a whole week in Lorient, and it was great because we we got to know the Australian consulate and got to know the person. So she took us right around France, around that area. We just toured it was quite nice actually. But I just got off track again. Sorry. But having played at that festival, it was the last night with Tommy. Tommy was the sort of the headliner. There was Archie, Tommy, and we did that sound check in the afternoon. Oh my God, there were so many didgeridoo players in France, but none of them were going to come talk to me. I was like, brother, oh no. Anyways, so they all turned up. They're all backstage. Everybody's doing their thing. So when I started playing with Tommy, he played really well, and I love Tommy. Now I got to play with Tommy with my instrument, the didgeridoo. I played dig for Archie too on that tour.
Oh, okay. What other tours overseas have you done that you managed to play?
Did a Rodriguez. I've done twice with Rodriguez.
Wow.
Yeah. Archie and Rodriguez, very similar. And they know each other's music and they talk about his music, you know.
Okay.
And, you know, when Archie died, I get a message from Rodriguez's daughter, Regan, saying we're sorry to hear about Archie. So that was like, wow, okay. And then when Rodriguez died, I reached out to them and said, look, we're sorry to hear about your father. For me, you see the good stories of Archie and you know, Rodriguez and Tommy Emmanuel, you know, they all know they know who Archie is. That connection, Archie connects a lot of people together. Mm-hmm. And for me to play with Tommy and Rodriguez is really important because of that one man, that old man called Archie Roach. Mm. And I struggled to, for 2 years, I still haven't come to terms, haven't grieved properly for him yet, you know. But yeah, because everybody keeps doing this and doing that, and I can't breathe.
You went back to South Australia, was it last year?
Last year.
To be given an award.
Yes, got a special
So
award.
what was that all about?
Well, because of my years of working in the industry, see, I've been doing this indie scene music and as an Aboriginal musician 20 plus years in the industry. I got recognised as become a Hall of Famer in South Australian Music Hall of Fame. And it was quite bizarre because they were trying to track down Paul Kelly to get him to get his award. Well, it was here on the Wednesday. He was in Adelaide getting his award, and my award was on the Saturday. Like I'm still coming in with the band, so he got his award and I got my award. So, and then I get a text message from Paul. He goes, "Congratulations, Rusty. Now we can walk the halls of fame together." I had a great old laugh when I saw that story.
How did it come about that you got the gig with Paul Kelly?
I've known Paul over that relationship in Melbourne. Get to know people, get to know musicians, get to know Vicar and Linda quite well. I got to know, because Ash, who I play guitar, dig with in Manta, which is a trio, and
So Manta's
it's a corporate cow. Let's be frank about this one. What Manta is acoustic guitars, cello, and didgeridoo. That's
That's
it.
an interesting combination.
It is. We did the Doctor Who theme on Spicks and Specs.
Oh, did you? Well, there you go.
It's quite, people like, because you hear that. So I'm on Digicam on the, because it sounds different. It's exactly the same, but it's a wooden instrument from Australia.
Yeah.
But that's my relationship started with getting to know over many years, and Ash, getting to know Ash like in the 90s through, he played with Even, and then he started playing with other different bands, and then he started playing with Paul Kelly.
Because he's a great guitar player, Ash.
Oh, Ash is a legend.
And all those signature pieces that he played with Paul Kelly, they're just so iconic.
No, I get this message from Steve, one of the guys who's an engineer, Stephen Satch, who lives just down the coast here. Brother, Paul Kelly's looking for a dig player to record. I'm going, oh, okay. So went and I looked at it first for a couple of days and go, oh, yeah, is this for real? Then I sent a message back, yeah, sure, no worries. And then he said, he rang me, Paul rang me, he said, Russell, I need you to come play dig. I said, sure, to on a recording. It was actually one of Archie's songs, Native Born, when the fires were happening, and I think Julia Stone put this album together of different artists to raise money for the victims of fire, and he did Native Born.
Okay.
And I played dig on Native Born. So that was like, and I thought nothing of it first. That was and a year later I get a email from Bill Cullen. Oh, Paul wants you to come play at the New Year's Eve gig, because at that stage it's COVID. We're all locked down, and so the Music My Bowl was in lockdown. There was nobody at the Music My Bowl. It was live, but was shot all streamed, and we're all like.
So you did a New Year's Eve gig to no audience.
And then Blink and Mount Tambourine, they all charging up on New Year's Eve and saw the gig, and what the blinker, that's Rusty. What's he doing with Paul Kelly? And then when he mentioned Tambourine Mountain, oh, that was it.
Because you organised...
Rock in the Rainforest.
And Paul Kelly came and...
Played.
And Brolga played as well.
Oh, we played. We just...
And a bunch of local bands.
It was good to see those local bands. Like Blind Corners for me is... They're a young indie band. When they played, that was the first gig they played, and they were like, what are we doing? But my philosophy is that you don't throw young fellas off a train and expect them to talk to you in the end. I threw them on the main stage and go, have a go, have a crack. And I had people saying, why those boys are playing? Because I'm letting them have a crack. They're having a go.
There used to be, when you and I were young, lots of opportunities to go and play in front of people. Lots of opportunities.
But that was the 80s and 90s. The 80s were different.
So it's wonderful to actually be able to give young bands an opportunity to perform, because there's not as many opportunities for them to do that.
There is nothing. There is no. I mean, I don't know about you, but there's a lot of indie bands that you go, oh, okay, and they're different. Not Blind Corners are different. Lime Cordial. What I like about those young bands is ballpark music. Oh, I love those guys. When I first met them when they were starting off, they did a gig in one horse town in Victoria, and they got us to come play, and we're yakking away those boys. Look at them now. They're massive. They're a good band. I like that band, but. Bands like, for me, the younger bands are coming through, you get to know who they are. We started off in the 80s. We grew up with, I grew up in a band called Avion, and they were a church band, and because I grew up with Christian music, and I'm like, it can't help because that part of the whole part of the mission and going back into the 80s. I listened to Amy Grant, I listened to Michael W. Smith. Like, my God, and Avion, and went.
Yeah, I listened to Avion a lot. I used to love that band. Went and saw him play at the Jet Club, and Randall Waller's he's still playing around. Went and played for a while with Shania Twain, and
yeah,
he's a
gun.
Yeah,
I love his music, and a dear friend Dave Anger, who I grew up with him in the 80s, and he couldn't find me for love of God, and he went to the Paul Kelly gig in Berry. He saw this guitar rack full of guitars and there was a ditch sticking up. And he's thinking, oh, Paul Kelly's got a ditch player. It must be William Barton. And then I rocked out and Paul Kelly's, Russell Smith, or they call him, here comes Rusty playing ditch. Dave wet himself. I know that guy. And his wife was there. I grew up with him. Because at that stage I didn't know who was what. And I get a message. From Dave. Oh, I was at the gig. Him and I grew up together in the 80s. We were in the same house. But we saw bands like Spy vs. Spy, which I do love very much. The Models, Uncanny X-Men, Ice House, all the Flowers in those days. Those bands we grew up. We went to the Tivoli at Bondi Beach when we could see the Hunters and Collectors. Jimmy Barnes was doing his solo gear by that stage. I went and saw The Last Stand at the Entertainment Centre in Sydney with Renee Gayer and Jenny Morris.
So do you think those experiences inspired the music that you do now?
Oh, absolutely. I till this day, Great Southern Land, I love that song, and Spy vs. Spy, there, and Avion, and Dave sent me two records of Avion. I'm like nearly wet myself when I got it. Like, what's that? So I'm starting a collection of records. But those bands in the 80s, they inspired me to write music. But for me, it's more about how you write music and how you think it's going to sound. You think you wrote the greatest song on earth, but you haven't. But over time, you keep writing. It took me close to 30 years to finally get a Brolga album out. But at the same time, I was doing this, doing that.
You've had a lot of diverse things to take your attention away from doing that, though.
Oh, totally.
You've spent a lot of time helping other people.
Yep.
Touring with other people.
Yeah.
I know that you've spoken a lot about doing a charity to educate.
For me, it's about giving back to my community. And I want to do that. And education is a bit key to get kids out of school. I've had at least 5 Aboriginal kids come out from Port Augusta, went to Sacred Heart College, graduated because they came out of community. The kids come out of a very poor school, but grabbing those kids at an early age, you got a chance of moulding those kids. You can't get them at 16, 17-year-olds. It's all over.
What would you say is one of the biggest highlights of what you've done so far?
It's playing from Nelson Mandela.
Oh, okay.
I had a private audience with Nelson Mandela.
Where did that happen and how did that come about?
Happened in Melbourne in the 90s, late 90s. I get a phone call from Auntie Joy Murphy, the traditional owner. Where are you? Home. Can you bring a ditch? Yeah, where? The Height in Melbourne. So I was like, it's only 20 minutes for me. Just get a cab and away I go. Get to play for Nelson Mandela. Oh my God. There's quite a few highlights for me. Nelson Mandela's one of them. In the 90s when Muhammad Ali came out to the grand final, jumped in the boxing ring with Muhammad Ali.
You did?
Yeah. Played didgeridoo. And he called me over after I finished, grabbed my hand, and I just felt every muscle. But he whispered into my ear, "I hear you, my brother." Grabbed my hand, I just went, oh my God. This man still got his wits about him and his strength. I felt every muscle, every boxing match he had fought in the ring by shaking his hand. So we got to play Dig for him. And then 20 years later, private audience with Michelle Grace Mandela. Private audience. We're down at Byron Bay, packed, outdoor dinner area, and I played Dig for her for Welcome to Country. No. I said to her, you talk and I'll play Dig. And I've got that recorded. And she talked about Aboriginal people, what she saw in this country. I followed her on didgeridoo right through. You couldn't hear a pin drop. But, you know, there are so many highlights for me as a musician. Yes, the didgeridoo plays a major role in who I am today and where does it get me. It gets me overseas. It gets me in front of dignitaries, prime ministers, presidents, first ladies in this country. But it's all with respect and humility to play in front of those people.
Where to from here? What's the plan over the next little while?
For me, it's more about more writing, more coming back to you and recording and telling my story and more Brolga stuff.
Because we have spoken about, and there is a plan.
There is a plan and we have money for you. We do. It's actually sitting there waiting. I've just got to sit with Maddie. And
there's a plan to do an album and I guess some sort of, like almost a doco type?
No, it's more about my story, who is as an Aboriginal kid growing up in the mission in Port Augusta, but writing 6 songs or 8 songs. I started talking to Darren, the producer, yesterday, and we sort of pitched it out a bit, how we want to do it. But the songs come first, because if you can pitch that what you're writing about, and then your story can work it into the.
But it's about your life growing up in.
As a mission, absolutely. Like, you know, I'm one of 300 plus Aboriginal kids that went through the mission. But I just want to tell my story and pay tribute to those people, to those kids that grew up there, and recognise who they are. And it's funny, like somebody asked me the other day, what is that one song, what song are you going to play at your funeral? I went, whoa, hang on, not dead yet, but what is that one song? I never thought about that till this whole come up, you know, writing those songs. Well, maybe I should write that song.
Write your one song.
Yeah, but write that one song for many Aboriginal kids that grew up in the mission, because it's paying tribute and homage to who those kids were growing up, you know. Mm-hmm. So at the same time, I'm like, yes, I do want to write that song. What is that one song, you know? It's not like an Archie song. It's more about who you are. That's where we sit down with, you know, musicians and producers, which is you, and talk about how do we map this out? Because if you map those songs out, then it goes, how do we write this together? Then it comes, how do we piece it together? How do we?
So that they're all one.
Yeah, one.
They all make sense as a package.
As a package, and then we pitch it to. You start rehearsing all that sort of stuff. You get Aboriginal women singers, Shelley Morris and Georgia Corowa and Lily Gogos, and those musicians.
So they sang on Digging in the Dirt.
They sang on Digging in the Dirt, and
it's amazing too.
Oh, it's beautiful. And you get young Kelsey Iris, you know, young Aboriginal woman. She lives down the corner. You get those 4 women.
Because she came and sang on a song on the last album.
Yep, which is good. So in saying all those, getting those strong. See, the backbone of Aboriginal community these days is more, it's about the women. But if you start thinking about music and work it out from there, the young ones have no idea missions and.
You went back to Adelaide and out into country to get some photos and stuff for the last album. What was that like for you?
It was.
'Cause I imagine it's something you don't get to do very often.
No, I don't do that. I don't get to kick off my shoes, walk around on a dry lake, and half an hour before that there was an emu walking that way, and you sit there and go, what the. And shoot out. It was more about a shooting in the right place when the sun was literally going down. And for me to go and, put my foot on a dry desert lake in your home community, it was amazing. I had the best. I felt so good.
Did it bring back a lot of memories for you?
It did, because I took them to the mission. I took all those kids out the bush. The kids ran around, and then we went. And we got heaps of food and fed them that night and cooked up a big meal, and yeah, it was one of those community connections where we sat and talked. Because I grew up in that area. It was great.
Yeah. So what's next? I guess we're going to record the story.
Yes.
The missionary story. What's the long-term plan? I guess you've got the kids. To get them through school.
Got to get from school. Keep everybody happy in the house, my wife especially.
You've been doing a bunch of, I don't even know what to call them. Are they seminars, talks?
Stories and songs, yes.
Stories and songs. Tell us about what Stories and Songs is about and how that came about.
It came about with Shane Howard, Neil Murray, Archie Roach. Because when we did that tour with them, they did 3 songs, the most iconic songs they've written.
Yep.
Neil Murray, Mile and Home, Archie Took the Children Away, Shane, Solid Rock. But that's where I saw conversation. And I thought, I'll lock this in. And
because you've toured with Shane Howard.
Yes, toured with Shane.
With Goanna.
And I've been talking to Shane for many, many years about coming up to Tambourine, we finally got him here. Stories, songs about, Aboriginal women, Aboriginal men, I call them the nonnies, the non-Aboriginal artists, the nonnies. Young artists coming through, talk about their music, the Haystack Mountains, because the Anzac songs talk about the Aboriginal soldiers and soldiers together. The Light Horsemen, there was a relationship with that, so I usually get them to do the Anzac weekends. We talked about 6 songs they give us. We talked about their music. Why did you write that song? There's a song about health with Kerry Gambley. But you get artists like young Kelsey and those 3 Aboriginal women talk about their songs. George is a mother of 2, talked about, as a mother growing up and, seeing different things within community. Ben Barker, Pete Neville, the drummer, and Grant Paulson, they talked about their stuff, which is good. And having Shane Howard talk about Goanna songs, Living on the Razor's Edge, Solid Rock, all those, Damn the Franklin, all those songs they've written in the 80s, and talk about why did you write that song. People want to hear their story, and that's what Songs and Stories is all about. You got a story to tell, I want to know why. And people sit there, it's a Saturday afternoon, public library, and I make it into this house concert. We just sit on the floor, cushions on the floor. People listen to music, and they have a glass of red, and they feed.
It's a great concept.
Oh, so what the... And it's growing. People saying, when's the next series? I'm like, well, let's get some money in first.
There's one thing that we haven't talked about yet, and it's something that I wanted
Benny
to...
Gibson? I'm looking at it.
You want that guitar, don't you?
Oh, yeah. I'm not that I keep coming in, oh, that Gibson looks good on me.
The thing that I wanted to talk about, which quite sort of stunned me a little bit, you and I were sitting down for lunch the other day, and I'd never experienced it with you before, and we've spent quite a bit of time together, and I'd really never noticed it or experienced it, but there was people sitting at a table close by who were obviously not happy about having you sitting so close. There was quite an obvious thing, and I don't know whether you'd call that racism, or I suppose it is.
It's racism, mate.
And you and I spoke about it, and it's something that obviously you encounter
Every day.
every day.
Absolutely.
How do you deal with that? You were saying something about that you like to think of yourself as the person who can change.
I try to change that.
Change people's minds.
I try to change people's attitude towards, colour, because in this country, racism is well and truly on the agenda.
It shocked me. I hadn't experienced it like that before.
Oh, I totally agree. I've had that every day of my life. But when I knew that was happening, and I didn't close off to it, but I said to you, but look at the food, what they're eating, and how healthy they are. You don't have to say anything, because we were healthy, we were eating, good food, but because that mindset of older non-Aboriginal people, because they've been set in their ways about Aboriginal people.
There's not been a lot of Aboriginal people painted in a positive light.
There isn't.
It's a lot of times in a very negative way.
Very.
And most people's experiences of Aboriginal people, not all, but a lot of people's experiences of Aboriginal people is via the media.
Oh, yep, absolutely. It happens every day. There's nothing positive come out for Aboriginal people. If we had an election now, the federal election now, the last thing on the agenda is Aboriginal issues in this country, because that doesn't win votes in this country. One thing Australians do is they don't vote governments in, they vote governments out. That's always been that. And Aboriginal issues in this country has been, either good or bad. But it's mainly more bad.
One of those things too where unfortunately money has been thrown at the problem, but it hasn't necessarily made it through to where it would actually do the most good.
And no, it doesn't, because, there was a Marcia Langton's an Aboriginal professor, and she's just like, yep. She'll tell her as it is. Aboriginal money, people think that we get Aboriginal money. We don't.
Well, I know that you've had to go and apply for grants to do recording and all sorts of other things, and it's not an automatic. It's not an automatic given.
No, it's not, because
I was thinking, there's no worry. The Russells are
black for up.
And it's
I'll get you. I'll give you $50,000 to go record in your album, and give me that guitar over there. Oh,
it's not an easy path.
It's not an easy path, but but that's what I'm saying. It's more about, how you going? Let's have a cup of tea. Let's have a talk.
I think it is one of those things. Yeah. Communication.
Oh, communication. You play to their strength by talking. Oh yeah, I know those Aboriginal people. I grew up with Johnny Blogg, and he was a drunkard. And I'm going, oh, that's lovely, but I'm not. You know what I mean?
Do you feel any pressure to be a role model?
I try not to be a role model. I try to be who I am as a human being. But some days I get tired of being an Aboriginal person, foremost. I just want to be a person, People say, all you blackfellas go walkabout. Hang on, time out. I don't go walkabout. I jump on flights. I go to sit in the Qantas Club, have a feed before I jump on the plane. They look at me. What do you mean? Well, you can go walk. I'm flying. See you later. I got a funny story to tell. When I was touring with Paul Kelly, and where were we? We're somewhere, and Dwayne was with me, the boss. And he goes, Rusty, I bet you money you go and sit in front A1. Oh, yeah? Watch me. Do you reckon I can sit there? Oh, yeah, sit down there. Dwayne McDonald wet himself. You bastard, Russell. How come you got to sit there? I said, brother, I asked nicely. Go and sit down the back. Oh, it's quite funny. I mean, these are the things you have to educate people about Aboriginal people, you know. And I'll try and do that. On that Paul Kelly tour, that Red Hot Summer tour, I just started educating people about blackfellas. Be professional. We were professional. We were on time. Bang, dressed, ready to go. You know what I mean? Doing our thing.
There's a reputation of being unreliable, a reputation of not being on time, a reputation of being drunk, a reputation. So I guess it's that thing of showing people that that's just not the case.
Yeah, it's not the case. Especially with me. I don't give them that opportunity to say, you're not on time, your band's there. One thing about touring with bands and crew, you'd finish your gig, go and say thank you to those guys. Thanks, guys, really appreciate it. Thanks to the Mono guys, thank you very much for everything. Thanks for being on all the backlines. Things like that, people remember that. And they go, no, that Brolgas, they were good. That Russell Smith, he thanked everybody on that stage. You know, but it's about educating who you are as a person. When bands started off in the 80s, like bands like No Fixed Address, Us Mob, Coloured Stone, Rumpy, when they started touring around, you know, getting gigs at pubs, owners didn't. The white publicans didn't know who they were. Oh, we're No Fixed Address. Oh, you bunch of abos. Fuck off. You're not playing here in my pub. Those bands forged a lot of Aboriginal bands today.
They did, yes.
And people got to remember that those bands made who we are today. You know, Aboriginal bands. So, yeah. Everybody thinks Christine Arnoux sings Mile and Home. Oh, yeah, Chris. No. Ryan Band wrote that song. There's not many Aboriginal bands that still play rock and roll, old style. Yeah, you got bush bands doing stuff out there, but they're not going out, being in front of tours. You know what I mean? That's the thing. So
is that the plan? Get on some festivals, play some more gigs.
I want to play. I want to go overseas. You know, I want to win. I want an aria. I want an aria to win. Hold in my hands. That's the next thing for me. I'm not saying it because I'm saying it because I worked my ass off for it.
Yeah. And
I've got the tools. I've got people in that position to get me there. So, yes. I've got a story to tell.
You know what? I've got a story to tell.
Okay, here we go.
It's lunchtime for you and I.
Okay, gonna make it quick because I got to be home by 3. I got kids. Remember that?
Yes, it was one of those things. Russell comes down to the studio quite often, and then we have to rush.
It's the witching hour.
We've got
witching hour, kids. Sorry about that.
What are the wishes that you have for your kids? Is it something? Is music a part of their life? And would you encourage them to be musicians?
I would love to be encouraging them musicians, but they've got their own path, and I can't force that to anybody or any kids. My two just read and be smart, you know.
Russell?
Yes.
Thank you very, very much for coming along and spending some time today.
Thank you, Scotty Whiteman. We've been talking about this for a long time, and I'm like, Scotty, I can't come. I think I got COVID. Shall we do this?
Thank you very much, Russell.
Scotty Whiteman, thank you so much.
And
and that's a wrap.
Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you on the next one. Cheers.